So you want to be a secondary photographer for a lead wedding photographer. Second shooting is honestly one of the best ways to get into wedding photography, or even to expand your skills as a photographer and to learn from other photographers. You get to practice, you get to access real wedding moments, and you get paid without having to lead the whole day. So let's make sure you're really well prepared. So here's everything you need to know beforehand and everything you need to ask your lead photographer. First, you need to know what gear you're expected to bring. Usually, lead photographers expect their second photographers to also bring some gear, but it's best if you just ask. You need to ask, you need to talk to your lead photographer about what they expect you to bring. Do you need a camera? Oftentimes, yes. You do need one. It's kind of rare for the lead photographer to supply a camera, but also oftentimes photographers look for second shooters who already use the same camera brand that they use. Especially if you're thinking about in the future taking the lead on weddings, it's good to go ahead and get a good camera body and a good lens. And next, about lenses, you need to know what lens you're expected to bring and just communicate with the lead photographer about what you already have, what they might have, and what they expect you to shoot, because what focal length you bring is going to really heavily determine what you're taking photos of. So make sure you discuss that with them. And then you need to know if you're expected to bring a flash, also something to ask. And most importantly, SD cards. A lot of photographers have a preference on how they handle SD cards and whether or not you're supposed to bring your own. So yeah, this is really important. You don't want to show up to a wedding without all of the gear that you need, especially the small things like SD cards. Easy to forget. It's also easy to just chat with your lead photographer and just build a good relationship with them. And I assure you that the lead photographer would rather you ask one too many questions than accidentally not bringing a very important piece of gear. The second big important point is that you need to know what's expected of you. You need to know where you're supposed to be in key moments, and you also need to know if the lead photographer expects you to get certain shots. Like, for example, are you in charge of the detail shots, or specifically the ring shots, or are you supposed to document the venue? Oftentimes, lead photographers have a very specific task in mind for you, and you need to listen to them. First of all, ask them, listen to them, and then follow their instructions, because it's really important that you don't miss certain shots that they expect you to get. So get organized, ask your questions, and then stay on task and do your best to get the shots that the photographer expects you to get. And every wedding has their key moments, like the first look, for example, or the ceremony, the vows. It's important that you communicate with your lead photographer where exactly they want you to be. So for example, oftentimes second shooters are in charge of getting good reaction portraits of the groom when the bride is walking down the aisle, and the lead photographer might be focused just on the bride. So your task as a second photographer might be to focus solely on the groom, or even on the crowd or something else, but there's certain expectations that your lead photographer probably has, so make sure you know those expectations and follow those. Same goes with direction. So some photographers really want you to step up and lead couples or lead portraits and direct people, while others really want you to focus on the candidates and the maybe even behind the scenes shots. So make sure that you know whether or not your photographer wants you to step in and direct people, or if it's better if you take kind of like a backseat approach and just let the lead photographer lead and you follow their lead and just get candidates and behind the scenes shots. The more you know about how your lead photographer works and what they expect of you, the smoother the whole day is going to go, and the more they will enjoy working with you and probably will invite you back. So one of the things that's good to know beforehand so that you can prepare is how to handle all of the files, all of the photos that you shot that day after the event. So some photographers, for example, would like you to just hand over your SD card and let the lead photographer take all of them. Some people want you to go ahead and cull the images a little bit and only give your best shots. That's good to know beforehand so that you can come in prepared and know what your workflow will look like after the event. The other thing that's kind of a controversial topic is whether or not you can use those shots that you took during the day, whether or not you can use those for your own portfolio. And this also really depends on who you're shooting with. And I think if you make it clear beforehand that you're really also second shooting to build a portfolio, I think a lot of photographers will be very sympathetic towards that and will just communicate with you whether or not that's something that they can have you do or what their client expectation is. Some people are not super keen on letting their second shooters keep their shots because technically it's their wedding and their responsibility, and so they're a little bit maybe more guarded towards using photos for your portfolio. But just talk to your photographer about it and see what you can work out. Either way, you're getting practice, and that's very, very important for something as intense as wedding photography. And then my last and probably most important point is that you need to know your settings for your camera, and you need to sync them up with your lead photographer. So you need to know what your white balance is supposed to be. You need to know whether or not you're shooting JPEG or RAW. Answer is probably RAW, but just make sure you have all of those specific settings set up right. Also very helpful to have your date and time set correctly, because that's going to really help editing later to mix and match the shots that you took and that the lead photographer took. So I'm going to share really quick what I would put in my camera bag if I was to second shoot again. Alright, so let's take a look at what I would have in my bag as a second shooter. So first, you definitely need a full frame mirrorless camera at this point. That's kind of an expectation that most photographers would have for their second shooters. I have the Sony a7 IV here, and I have a 28-70 lens, which I would recommend a zoom lens because you'll need to be able to take a wide range of photos most likely, and just to be prepared for any circumstances. They might have a lens that they want you to use, so definitely double check with them. But if you're looking to build your second shooter kit, a zoom lens would be ideal. And then I'd also bring an on-camera flash like this Profoto right here. It's the A10 or even the Godox V1. A flash that you can mount on your camera, that way you can also go around the dance floor at night and take a lot of guest shots, which is something that a lot of main shooters really appreciate their second shooters to do. And then of course I'd bring a ton of extra SD cards just to have on hand. It's kind of nice to just have a little stack of them for yourself, but also if something goes wrong with the main shooters, SD cards, it will be really nice to be the savior of the day and have extra SD cards with you. As with this whole video, just talk to your main shooter and see what they expect of you. That way you make sure that you have everything that you need in your bag. And some people also like to have a backup camera and lens, but of course that's not possible for everybody. And then I always bring a snack for myself and some water. It's just nice to have on hand and to be able to be nice throughout the whole day, because that's the most important thing about being a second shooter. You just have to have a good attitude. So whatever makes you be a better person throughout the day, put that in the bag and bring it with you. Being a second shooter is honestly such an amazing way to learn and grow as a photographer and to understand the workflow and just the vibe of a wedding day. It's such a specific skill to have, and it's great to learn from experienced photographers about just how to handle difficult situations and interpersonal situations. It's good to learn from somebody and to just get your foot in the door when it comes to wedding photography. So just be easy to work with, well prepared, and have a good time shooting. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.